Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it is Transformation Tuesday over at Loving Me Before I Love You. And like any other episode, we are always here to give value and increase your self-love as well as how it affects every area of your life. And you guys know that imposter syndrome is like running rapid. For the month of March, we've been talking about leadership. We've been talking about like career expansions and things of that nature. But imposter syndrome really is high. It's a term that has been used very frequently, I would say, in the career space, because we are always trying to do something, but we are so afraid to do it. It's like, I want to do this, but I don't know if I trust myself to do so. Well, today, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how you can let go of that imposter syndrome and actually lead from within and lead outwardly and walk into your own purpose. I do have a guest with me. Her name is Shree, and she has been, she used to work in corporate America for like 30 plus years. And now she's a wonderful mindset shift transformation coach for women, helping them basically stand on business and rock the world that they were supposed to live. Welcome to the show, Shree.
Thank you. It's so awesome to be here. I love the name of your podcast. I love what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you. So the name of the podcast, you know, it's so funny that you even said that, because I don't think I've ever really talked about why I named it Loving Me Before I Love You. It really came from my own exploration of me, right? We are so quick to say I love you to other people, but we never so quick to say I love myself. You know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start loving me before I love you. And that's kind of like how it came about. So it's like loving me before I love you. And everything I do around that brand is really focused on self-love, because we do have to learn to love ourselves first. A lot of times we want to love everybody else and we love ourselves last, but I want to do it first.
Yeah, it really resonated with me, because it's so true. If you don't figure out, how to love yourself, you can't really give what you you can't give to others the way it's really, really, resonated.
Yeah. And then a lot of people don't understand that part. They think that they can. I always say the love you think you're giving someone is really fictitious and false if you haven't given yourself the love first.
Well, and if you don't have that self-worth, which is another big word that's been all over the place this year, right? If you don't have that, then you're going to have maybe some failed relationships or a lot more challenges, and whether it be business or personal. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Thank you. So we talk imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
What is it? How does it typically manifest in high achieving individuals? Because that's who really have it. It's like those high, super successful individuals are the ones that really suffer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really a psychological pattern, right? Where we doubt ourselves, where we question ourselves, our abilities. We feel like we're a fraud. And the self-doubt like really creeps in. I think it is very prevalent for women in leadership or, being in the corporate world for so long. And I was, I worked my way up the ladder, and I was in a very masculine energy environment much of the time. And I felt it the most then. When I was with my team and there were a mixture of men and women, and I really felt good about what I was doing, I was fine. And then the minute I would get in a big meeting with all that energy, it would set in. And it was something I was really aware of a lot.
Now, could we actually reduce imposter syndrome down to lack of confidence? Or is it truly like I'm doing something that's like, when you hear the word imposter, that means like you're pretending to be something that you're not, right?
I think it's lack of confidence or your own self-doubt or fear. And I think that, self-confidence can only be built by embracing fear and doing new things. And when you're sitting at home and you know what you're doing, or you're visualizing what you're going to be doing at work, you've got it. And then you get there and then you compare, or you see what other people are saying or doing, and you start to shrink. And I think that then it becomes a self-confidence issue, because if you're already in a role where you've been hired to do something, like, no one has it all figured out. And that's what you need to tell yourself. Like, that's why you have mentors and you have people around you, and you surround yourself with good people, because you may have certain skills that you excel at, but no one can be great at everything. 100% of the time. So you just have to know that, like, okay, take it easy and don't compare yourself. But easier said than done, right? So easier said than done.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think about, like, a lot of times we don't get that exact message that you just said, as far as you don't have to know it all, right? Yeah. I think we do get placed in positions, be it that you placed yourself there because you're in a, entrepreneurial role, or you are actually in corporate America that you interviewed for and, got the job. I think that even that we place so much weight on ourselves to think that we must be perfect for that space.
Yes.
Versus just whatever is what you know, and that there are connecting dots. Like, your role is not the end all be all role. I do think that in corporate America, it's probably a lot more heavy because you don't want to lose a job. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I can't afford to lose this job by not performing, by not, exercising or showing that skill set that I said I could do in that interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then you could look at it like, if you do mess up in one particular area, that's where people worry about failure. And failure is a good thing. As long as you're not costing a company millions of dollars, you know what I mean? You're doing something stupid. But I mean, if you just kind of messed up, that's how you grow. But you have to look at it that way. I mean, there were times where I knew what I was doing, and there were times where I just had to fake it till I made it. Truthfully, in certain areas, and that's where I was growing, and I would depend on certain people to help me. And I think that's where fear kicks in, and that's how you grow your confidence. But You're right. I mean, I think looking at it like I'm going to lose my job would be extremely severe and fear-based, and that would not serve someone.
Right.
That's where you have to say, okay, what have I done really well? I know I've got this. And then, you have to, like, make a list, like, keep a mental note of, this is what I do really well. And if I don't do something really well, who can I bring on my team to help me with that? So I don't have this imposter syndrome all the time.
That's true. I think, do you think companies are responsible for decreasing imposter syndrome? And the reason I say that is because if you have the fear that you're going to lose the job, then the likelihood of you kind of letting the guard down and saying the words, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, or I need more training in, this sector of my position, is less likely. You know what I mean? Like, because they don't make it welcoming that you don't know it all. You know what I'm saying? Like, they make it like you should know your full-fledged, your whole position to an extent that makes you have that I feel like that imposter syndrome just kind of just like, oh, just falls on you, because it's like, wait, especially if you have a boss that is like very rigid and not really forgiving, no bandwidth of, flexibility.
Yeah, you're bringing up memories for me. I'm trying to think.
Sorry.
Like, if you don't have a good stuff. If you don't have a good leader,
there you go.
Right? Or if you're not with a company that believes in continual training, then that's going to be really challenging. And I think, like, I was in a role where they just assumed I knew how to do certain things. And, I had to prepare these millions and millions of dollar budgets, and my expertise, I could get my way around Excel. Could I do like amazing spreadsheets? No. So I remember feeling really inadequate. So then, is it up to the employee to say, well, I need to take more courses? Or is it up to the employer to say, where can I assist you? Where do you need more help? And I think that's where the good leadership comes in, and you need to recognize what your team needs. But I don't know. I kind of feel like it's
a little bit of both.
I do, because I just think it's more like, okay, what's the big deal? So I need to learn more in some area. But it's when you're doubting yourself all the time, when you're walking into an office or a meeting or just afraid to go on an interview. Like, I think that's where your own self-confidence and your own mindset needs to shift. Because if you want something and you believe you're good enough for it, you've got to do the work to tell yourself that.
Absolutely.
There's no one else going to do that. Unless once you excel at certain things, you'll get recognized for it. But I think it's up to us. I think imposter syndrome is all in our own heads.
At 100%.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I think it's a combination, right? So I do think outside influence, does have a part to play. I think when you know a thing, right? You mentioned, I know it in my own private space, and then I get into a room with other people, and it's like the shrinkage happens because of their energy. And it's no longer trusting of self to the thing that you already knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's where I would always do this. I would visualize. I would always walk in before I'd go into an important meeting, or I would say, okay, what's it going to be like? What are the triggers? What's going to happen? I know this person, that person, and the other person is going to completely have bad energy and make me feel really crappy. And how do I want to feel when I leave? How do I want to walk out of that room, and what do I want to accomplish? And that always helped me at least have a little bit more faith in my ability. I would say, okay, well, be prepared, as long as you're prepared. I don't know. I think it's definitely other people can make it worse by their energy or their personality. Yeah. But it's how we
individually feel
it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I will say imposter syndrome for me exists without people. And you probably say like, wait, what? It exists. It does exist for me. It does exist without people, because I have imposter syndrome when it comes to social media.
I was going to talk about that. Yes, that's exactly what does it too.
It's like, I know what I'm talking about, right? I know that I can help successful women who are empty and overwhelmed on the inside, who go home, lay in bed and cry at night because they feel unfulfilled and unsatisfied, but they have every dollar that they need in their bank account. Their kids are fed and well dressed. They drive what they want to drive. They live where they want to live, and they can't figure out why they still empty. Yeah, I know I can help them. Right? Yeah. I know that I can give them all the transformation that they require simply by teaching them how to love themselves, period. Right? Yep. However, when it comes to being on social media, like talking, what they say, talk to video, talk to camera, whatever the heck it's called. I'm not in that marketing stuff. I don't know. But it's like, talk to the camera and tell the people, talk to their pain points, tell them what they need to know, speak to them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to myself. That's hard. I always shrink into, it doesn't come off in the confidence that I know exist because I feel less than talking to myself. Like I really.
But don't you think that's because you're having to step out of your something different zone. To you? And I also think social media makes us, it's the whole comparison thing too. You're seeing somebody do it so well. And it's funny. I was on some webinar. I have the same, I agree. Same thing. And I was on a webinar and the woman that was running it was so authentic enough to show, and she's really big now. I don't remember her name. And she showed her first original videos and they were not great. And she was like, you just need to start somewhere and don't worry about it. And I think when you realize that you're just stepping out of a major comfort level, that's when you doubt yourself. Yeah. Right. And we just compare all the time. I think women are worse. I don't know. Maybe men do too. I think women are worse.
Well, I know men compare for sure.
Yeah.
They compare, but then they can't show it. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas we compare and we shrink and minimize and disappear. In other words, we just don't show up. But I just think like a lot of times when I look at the social media piece, like for myself, and I say the comparison of, man, that video was crisp and clean. And oh my God, she spoke so clear. And oh my goodness, she didn't scratch her nose. She didn't say, she didn't go, and it's really more when it's talking about my same subject.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like any other video. If it ain't in my same subject matter, I don't really care, but it's when it's in my same subject. I was like, man, she did what I could have. Yep. I have those notes written down, or I did something similar 2 days ago. Didn't.
But you don't know how many times she did that tape. She could have done like 20 different versions of it,
Let me tell you.
It was live?
No. Oh. I don't even know how to do the live thing. That's another, I don't know how to do the live thing. I'm like, who am I talking to? Nobody's in this room. I'm supposed to talk while nobody's here. Like, I don't understand that. Like, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. I told somebody they're gonna have to give me live lessons because I don't get it like at all. I see them doing it, but I guess the part that for me, and I know this is so somewhat off topic, but when I go and I see a live, there's already people in there. So that person is like, even though they're not physically like talking to someone face to face or back, people are still commenting in the comments. So they really talking to them. You know what I mean? It's like they're live responding to a text message. That's the way I look at that.
Yeah.
But
I think you have to start somewhere,
there.
right?
Right. But I don't see how to get
it. Do you know Brendan Burchard? Do you know the coach Brendan Burchard? Have you heard of him?
Mm-mm.
He's like huge now in like the personal development industry. And he always, again, he's another one that laughs and says how he started and how he used to be so nervous and like shaking and thought he was awful at it. And I told myself that when I did my first like webinar or workshop, like, okay, I got to start somewhere. I even did a post, like it's way down on my social media, and how I had like a bad review on one of them. And I was like, I had to start, I had to do it. I had to learn. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that that's how you can conquer a little bit of imposter syndrome, because the only way to get confident is to build it.
I agree with that. 100%.
Doesn't mean it's easy.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. I just, I do think you start somewhere. Like I said, I literally just did a post before we even came to record. And I was like on TikTok, I'm like, I look a hot mess. It's a rough week. I don't really care. Right. And I was like, I may look like this today. I won't look like this tomorrow. I
Yeah.
said, but why do I care? Like, why do I care what I'm looking like in order to say what I got to say? You're either going to take what I say and do something with it, or you're not. And if what I look like matters, if you use the value that I gave you, that's on you, not on me. Right? Like,
Well,
that's the whole post.
yeah.
Like, that's what I...
It's true though. I love when I look at people that have no makeup on and just are just being themselves. That's who I resonate with. You know, I mean, makeup on now. I'm just saying
No.
you're right. Who cares? Because
Why do I care?
It's what you're saying, and it's
right.
just being real.
That part, when you said being like authentic.
I just feel like it's sad when imposter syndrome or self-doubt stop us, women, men, whoever it may be, from really being empowered to do what we want to do. Like we're thinking it, we want it, we know it, it's there. And then that kicks in. And it's like, that's what stops so many people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what stops, even whether it's corporate or just living your dream, finding your dream.
Yeah.
It puts a complete stop on people from being their true selves. And I think when we are ourselves is when we're the best.
Absolutely.
But we're afraid to be ourselves, a lot of people.
A lot of us don't know who ourselves are. You know what I mean? Like, who are you?
A lot of us don't, but if we sat and, like I always tell my clients, when you sit with your shit and you figure everything out, and when you do that, and then you're not afraid to act on some of it, that's when it really gets great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got to figure that, like, it's like, you know, when I'm doing coaching and I'm teaching them how to love themselves, the very first portion of it is a big assessment, right? Like, you have to do this assessment. And a lot of times when they do the assessment, they discover things that they didn't know truly existed because of the way the questions are being, you know, phrased. But self-discovery is an ongoing thing. You're going to discover something in your 20s that you didn't know existed. You're going to discover something in your 50s that you didn't know existed. You know, there are a lot of time that is like we're forever changing. And I think that some of us have what I call fixated mindset about who they are. They think that whoever they are today is who they are forever. And the reality of that is no. There are going to be things that happen to you in your life that's going to change this perception, this version of yourself. And we adapt all the time to new environments, new circumstances. But you're forever changing. Change is inevitable. You always have to do it. It's like you want to or not want to, you're going to do it.
But I think when people stay complacent, it's because they're afraid of the change. So being afraid of the change is what holds people back. And I always say I'm a work in progress. I mean, I may be a coach, but I learned things 2 months ago about my childhood that I thought I figured out. Like, I'm still peeling away the layers, right?
Yep.
But
we're onions.
I think it's fun because we're always growing. Growth is good, but
always. And I always say that too, like, just because someone says that they're a coach or an expert or knowledgeable about a particular subject, it doesn't mean that they are exempt from the things that they teach.
Right.
So in other words, like, I can be an amazing self-love coach. It does not mean I don't have days where I'm doubting certain things about myself or that I'm feeling down or no, I still have to implement them same tools that I teach you in my own life. It's not like teach it, don't use it, or teach it, never need it. Like, who does that? No, that's why therapists, need therapists and doctors need doctors. You can't do your own thing. You know what I mean? Like,
and I always say you want to have a coach that at least has been through a similar journey or understands what you're trying to accomplish, because if the coach has done that particular work, then like you said, we're never exempt. We're not perfect. It just means we understand maybe at a higher level than where that person is to get that person to that next level.
Yeah.
But yeah. Wow. I'm just trying to think of other ways of helping people with imposter syndrome, because it's a great topic.
Yeah. How do you, when you think about that, right? And you say someone comes to you and they have imposter syndrome and you say, how do I fix it? How do I get out of it? How do I change it? What's the first thing you tell them?
Well, I would first say, in what area are you feeling that you're a fraud, or that you're inadequate? And so what is making you feel that way? Is it true? Like, what are your skills? What have you done really well in that particular area? Write them down, list everything you did really well. And if you're not doing really well in a couple of things, what can you do to improve? But it doesn't mean you're not good at what you do.
Yeah.
So why are you thinking that you're not? And so start there, right?
Yeah.
And then build your confidence. Step out of your comfort zone. Build that muscle. Show you can take another step. Don't be afraid of the failure, because once you do something even more towards that field or that whatever it might be, you're going to see that you're even better than you thought. Right. And I always say, don't be afraid to be you. That's like, we just talked about that. But if you know you're good at something in particular, then don't hold back, because that's when you feel like you're a fraud. You're like, oh, well, what if I mess up? What if people think I'm not good enough? That's not going to happen if you know what you're doing.
So it's so funny that you say that. So like when I was younger, my mom used to always say, I can go into any room and control it, like command the room. Because I always had this like level of confidence. I didn't care if I didn't know nothing. You wasn't going to know I didn't know nothing. Like that was my mindset, right? Like I may not know nothing, but you're not going to know that I don't know nothing. Yep. And it could be any subject, any topic. I can know nothing about it. I'm going to make you talk enough about it that I'm like mentally analyzing what you're saying. And then when it's time for me to talk, I'm going to give my opinion about what you just talked about. That don't mean I knew anything about what you just said.
You must have been fun when you were a little girl.
But it was, my mom used to say, you stay in grown folks' business too much. But, that's what it was. I was like always around older people. I, never was too much around like kids my own age. I was very mature. I always had an opinion about something, and most of the time it was like mature opinion. It wasn't like, immature thoughts or what have you. So my mom was like, okay, you're going to be that kid. Like you're going to be in somebody's something all the time.
But don't you think that's when good self-talk is helpful too? Like when you can give yourself positive reinforcement?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times if when asking what steps would you teach a person who has imposter syndrome, validating the actual thoughts, like when a thought is there, negative or positive, like whatever it is it valid? Mm-hmm. Is it real? Right? Mm-hmm. How do you make the statement real? When you say, I can't do X, Y, and Z, where is the proof that you can't do X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough to be in this room. Prove it. Where's the evidence that makes this statement true? So even when I teach individuals how to get rid of limited belief systems, we do that. We write the thought down and then we write down the valids. Like where's the truth in it? Show me how, if you're not beautiful, I'm not cute today. Okay, prove it.
I always say and is that a fact?
Right.
Yeah. And where did that belief come from? Who told you that? Yourself? Correct. Did you hear it from somewhere? Did someone, and if someone did tell you that, is it true? Or is it just their opinion? It's like, but it's crazy how our inner thoughts just control so much, and then when you're doing something new, you're resisting it because it's so uncomfortable and new, and then the fear sets in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, even though like fear, right? It's like, because you don't know what's going to happen. You're not that confident in the outcome. And I always say, you may not be confident in the outcome, but you won't have an outcome if you don't do the thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need the confidence in the outcome. You need the confidence in the step.
Mm-hmm. You just have to take a step forward.
Because the outcome is going to outcome itself, period. Like it's going to do its thing no matter what. But the real, like, what if you don't? Instead of saying, what if I do? What if you don't? What are you losing out on because you didn't?
It's a great question, isn't it?
And when you act and when you make the statements, oh my goodness, this is the statement that I really get all the time, that I always say, oh, really? That's what I say. I say, oh, really? Like to make them really think about it. When they say, well, I may not, know what I'm missing, but I'm already not having it right now. So am I really missing it? And I say, oh, really? I said, because the answer to that is yes, you're missing it. Because if you're missing it because you want it. The mere fact that you desire to have something different means you're missing it already. Because you wouldn't want it if you weren't missing it. If I didn't want to have additional finances, let's just say I want to have millions of dollars in the bank. Would I work to go get the millions of dollars that I want in the bank if I wasn't missing the millions of dollars that I want in the bank? Absolutely not. Why would I work for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm missing it, so I'm working. I want it. I'm going after it. If I wasn't missing it, it can stay the way it is because I would be content.
Yeah. Well, the feeling has to be strong enough to get through that. You have to really. I'm curious, you just mentioned the social media aspect for you, but what kind of, for you to bring up imposter syndrome and want to talk about this, what else ever happened to you in the past that you dealt with it? Or do you find that, have you talked to men about it? Where does it come up for you?
So again, it always just comes up in social media because social media is so isolating.
Yeah.
I'm a people person. I'm an energy person. So I thrive off being around people and energy and the exchange of it. So feeling not good enough for the social media and then having the comparison syndrome happening with other coaches that are out there providing the same type of service, not necessarily to the same exact population, but similar populations, right? And just wanting to shine in the same space. That imposter syndrome always kicks in. Now, does it stop me from per se doing things? Absolutely not. But it exists, like the feeling pops up, so that's where it kind of exists for me when I'm trying to help others understand that loving you, knowing you also helps move through it. It also helps push past it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it doesn't show its ugly head, but it does mean even if it shows its ugly head, that I got to trust me and I got to love me enough to say, I can still do it. And then give yourself a new narrative. So my new narrative when it happens is the people that are assigned to me will find me, period.
Yeah. I love that. And I don't think it's avoidable in any stage. I think when a particular person is excelling at a certain level in their career, then it might be easier. But then when you're trying something new or you're in a different atmosphere, I think it's there for everyone. And I don't think it's something that will ever go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something you have to be aware of and then know how to kick it.
And be honest about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are not as honest about it because it's frowned upon. You don't believe in yourself. You don't think you're worthy to be in this room. You don't think you're, good enough to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And the reality is, it's like for the moment or in that moment. Yes, but not for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
like not for real. Like, my for realness is I'm good enough to do everything I'm designed to do. That's my true statement. But in that moment, when I'm preparing to do X, Y, and Z, or if I run across somebody else's video before I hit the plus sign on TikTok to actually record or whatever the case may be, yep, that thought in that moment exists. But how do you combat it? You combat it by validating it. Is it real? Is it a real thing? Is it true? Is it my truth? And the answer is no.
Mm-hmm. And remembering what your end game is, like, what you want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And how you're going to get there. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Wow, today's episode is a good one. I know you're enjoying it, and we'll get back to it shortly. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Tammy would love for you to share any questions, comments, or topic ideas you have with her. All you have to do is send them to her in an email to podcast@IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
And it's I think a lot of it comes from, again, I think it all really boils back to you as an individual and how you see yourself, period. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, it just goes back to that. Like, no matter which way we try to flip the coin on it, like, why does it exist? How often does it exist? Who actually experiences it? I think it's an everybody thing. I really do.
I do
so
too.
If you're listening, you're not alone. And there is no level. It's not, oh, I feel it because I really want to be a C-suite exec and I'm over here in management status and can't, push up to the director spot. Or I'm non-management. I'm just here. But I could see myself walk in C-suite and I'm like, how do I get there? And I haven't learned how to navigate. Like, I do think that mentorship is important. I do think that journaling and writing your goal and your plan, like, make a plan for it. Like, whatever you want to do that you don't believe is possible, make a plan for it. And whatever that plan is, do one step at a time.
Yeah, I always say you have to have action steps, like small action steps, so you can build your momentum and build your confidence and visualize yourself there, right? If you don't quite feel ready for it or that you can do it, just visualize yourself. But you're right, it's everyone deals with this on some level, and it all is about how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself, or what you've been telling yourself. That negative self-talk is huge.
Real big. Yeah.
It's real big. And the only way to combat that is, like you said, is it real? But change that story, rewire it to a new version and tell yourself that all the time, because our brains will remember, our brains will recondition once they hear that new story, but you have to be consistent with that new story. They don't know the difference. So you tell your brain that you're not good enough. You're telling your brain you're a badass. It's going to believe eventually that you're a badass.
Correct. Now, the other thing that literally just came to my mind in this very moment is stop writing the story about other people. So a lot of times she's better than me. Who said that? you're writing their story. And if you ever took the time to talk to them, their story may be an exact reflection of yours. They may also not think that they're good enough. They may also feel less than or have a lack. But when we write their story in our mind in comparison to us, you go in like, ooh, he spoke well. How am I going to speak? How am I going I can't I don't even know those kind of big words. Look at me. I'm fumbling over my, you know what I mean? Like you are already, you're creating their narrative and yours.
Yeah, that's a tough one because if you're like in that moment and you're comparing, that's really hard because you have to kind of come back to being yourself. But I always like to tell myself when you're comparing to someone that's maybe super successful in an area you want to be in or whatever the case may be, just always come back to be happy for them, and that's their time. And your time is here. Just be you. It's all going to work out for you. You don't have to be where that person is at this moment like that person. You need to be you on your journey and be okay that your journey is where it is and be appreciative for that person. Don't look at it like I need to be just like that or I'm not as good as that. That's what has always helped me.
Yeah.
Because when I was first beginning as a coach, I had that comparison all the time. Like, who am I to do this? I have my story. I may have, done my workshops and my certifications, but really who am I? And I that was like 15 years ago. And it took me time because I finally had to just say, yes, I have value and the people that resonate with me or that I can help will come. And if another coach is doing something else, that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think it applies to whatever field you're in. Just let someone have their own great attributes and know that you have yours. Don't try to have theirs.
Right.
That comparison thing is going to really
hinder. Will do it every time.
Yeah.
Because you are made for, who you are is for you, and whoever is supposed to be assigned to you is coming.
Yes.
They're coming.
Belief in that.
And you just got to show up. But if you're not showing up, they're not going to be able to find you.
Right.
Your life is not your own. You're living it for someone else.
You got to do those steps.
Yep. Absolutely. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. This has been so much
thank you.
fun.
You as well.
If you can tell the listeners three things that they need to do to overcome imposter syndrome. So they're like, oh my God, I need to write this stuff down. What are those three things?
I think it goes back to what we first said. Ask yourself, is it really true?
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to make a list of all the successes that you have, big and small, whatever area it may be. So make a list of your successes, journal them, and then reaffirm, create new thoughts for that belief that you're doubting. And I think it's really, I say it's as simple as that, but it can be as simple as that, as recognizing, that and you can't be, and don't be a perfectionist. We cannot be perfect in everything we're doing. And be okay with failure, because failure is only creating more knowledge and more confidence as you keep building that muscle.
Absolutely. Tell the people where they can find you, Shree.
They can find me on Instagram at Shree Coaching, or they can find me on my website, which is shreerigo.com.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation. You remember, you guys, you have to be able to fail, and it's okay, right? Because failure only exposes growth, and it only exposes things that you needed to know. So when you fail, it's like, wait a minute. Oh, I didn't know that can happen. Or I didn't know, so you learned something, and now you know what not to do the next time. And you've added a new skill or a new knowledge to your repertoire, which builds you to know something a little more than what you did before you actually failed. And remember that building self-confidence starts with you. It starts with building who you are. Love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. You know where to find me. If you would like coaching, hit me up at coaching@IamTammyNicole. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.